So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we may have some people that kind of come in at a later time, and that's fine. I always usually tell them, no apologies needed for being late, you're here. That's the main thing. So before I begin, I guess I should start with some introductions because some of you are familiar with some of us, and then some might not be. So first I wanted to thank Pastor Wayne and his congregation, or here at Center Point, for allowing us to be able to do this here. It's just a really great environment. It's so calming and peaceful. And when you're showing up to talk about grief, we need calming and peaceful environments. So I want to thank him for being a gracious host. I would thank his wife, but she left, so, but I will thank her as well. And then I just wanted to acknowledge some of the people that are here from our bereavement team today, because some of you who loved one or person utilized hospice benefit, you may have gotten a call from them, or you might be working with them, and maybe you talk to them over the phone. So it's a really nice way to kind of say, hey, I recognize that voice, or I know that name. So my name's Melissa. I'm one of the bereavement counselors with Hospice. And then, if I don't know where the other microphone went, I should bring it around.
You want to just come up?
We can be loud. Okay, you can be loud. Go ahead. And then I'll have my other team members stand right up and introduce yourselves.
Hello, I am Mitchell, and I'm one of the other bereavement counselors here at Hospice.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Beth. I'm also a bereavement counselor here at Hospice.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We also have other bereavement team members here. I don't like to call them volunteers, although that's what they are. They are part of the team, and without them, we could not do what we're doing. So whoever would like to start, I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, whoever would like to start, I want you to just say, hi, my name is...
Hi, my name is Linda Bolger, and I'm a hospice bereavement volunteer. I make bereavement calls, so I may have talked to you on the phone.
Hello, hi, I'm Sheila Bishop, and I also make the bereavement calls. I'm a volunteer with the bereavement team.
Good morning. My name is Chuck Massoon-Taster, also make calls.
Hello, I'm Mary Carol Griffin, and I help out with the grief social.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name's Janet. I volunteer in Friend of Life as well as the bereavement calls.
Yeah. And they call themselves volunteers, but like I said, they're part of the team. And without them, the three of us could not do what we do. I just want to share, showing up, it's so important to have things like this so that way maybe you're listening to some of the things we're talking about. I always say going to support groups, going to workshops, it's not always about talking. Sometimes it's also about listening and kind of taking information. However, sometimes retaining said information can be hard. So that's why I created all the folders, so that way you have that information, as well as on the other side, in the other room, there's a table with all different types of grief print material, as well as our current support groups that we have. And I always like to highlight, we have such amazing support groups, and it's not all about going and talking about your feelings. We are doing a baking support group. We have a support group that's more focused on doing activities. Yeah, some grief talk does come up, but there's also some time for laughing and being able to be creative. So we have a lot of great information over there. During the workshop, probably discussing some pretty heavy emotions. There might be some things that may activate or trigger your grief at any time. if you're starting to feel like this, know that you can take a break. You don't have to sit here and try and push through. We do have some people who are joining us virtually, and so what's nice is that the information will be available after. So if you do step out, you can go back and revisit it again. If you wanted to take a break across into the cafe, the TVs over there will still be streaming the workshop, which is really great, so you can take a break over there. If you want to talk to one of the bereavement team while you're taking a break, that's what we're here for. Yep, okay. So the holidays. You know, the holidays are challenging, even without adding grief into that. You know, there's family dynamics. Sometimes there's blended families, or there's that pressure to kind of create that Hallmark style celebration. But now when we add this layer of grief, you know, it makes the season kind of feel a lot more overwhelming. There's sort of these sometimes unrealistic expectations that we feel like we need to still continue to do. And it's very emotionally complex. So that's kind of why we do this holiday workshop. So today we'll kind of be going over some holiday planning, some different coping tools. We'll talk about healthy boundaries for all of those who have met me. You know, I'm a broken record when it comes to self-care, and part of that self-care is having these healthy boundaries in order to support you and your grief. That's the thing that I always like to say, is that people in your circle might have a lot of ideas of what your grief should look like, especially during the holidays, but the most important thing is what you need to feel supported, and what does that look like. So during the workshop, when you came in, and for those who didn't have a chance to do it, you still will have a chance, we had you fill out your person or your people's name on the card over there and bring it up here with our candles. So we're going to actually do a coping technique within the holiday workshop. You don't have to do anything, you already did it. You already filled out the name, but that's something that we'll do. It's called the 5 candles. And then we'll also be talking about the new year. So a lot of the holidays are focused around Thanksgiving, Christmas, but sometimes that new year, that's just as challenging. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. And then in your books, there is a program. I put a program in that kind of says who's doing what part. But after the candles, we will have a moment of silence. During that moment of silence, Pastor Wayne has graciously agreed to provide some music just for reflection. Once we're done with that piece, we'll open it up. And for questions, discussions, thoughts, please know you don't have to ask anything or share anything if you don't feel comfortable. I always say this, that when it comes to grief and holiday planning, I don't always have all the answers. I like to think I do, but sometimes we don't. Some people that are here now have already kind of gone through a first holiday or even a second or third. So sometimes it's about sharing what they did to support themselves and just hearing their stories. But we will have a microphone. But if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to ask. If you want to see us after, we'll be there to provide support. And then we have lovely refreshments and goodies over on the cafe. And then there will be an opportunity to create a remembrance ornament. So we have everything laid out, and we have all of us here to kind of help guide you through that. If you don't want to stay for that, you don't have to, but it's there for you. So I really think it's kind of important before we get into sort of the holiday planning, just to kind of talk a little bit about grief, because it's not talked about. And there's all different types of grief. The kind of grief that we sort of focus on is more of the grief related to after your person is passed. But prior to that, there's anticipatory grief, which sometimes people don't even realize that's what they're going through. And that's sort of all these anxious emotions and feelings sort of leading up to how my life is going to look when my person passes. You know, the holidays can really sort of magnify all of those emotions. It can be very normal to feel all these different emotions. One minute you might find that you have so much joy and happiness, and then 2 minutes later, you might be sad or you might be reflective. It's okay. All of those emotions are all right. I always try to say, try not to avoid the heavier emotions. It's easy to like kind of push the emotions away, not to avoid them just because it seems easier. But what happens is that grief eventually will come out. It might not be in the emotional aspect. It might be more physical, which I'll talk a little bit about. But just know there's no right or wrong way to grieve. There's no right or wrong way to cope. There's a lot of unhealthy ways, but I have clients that want to build shrines to their person in their home, and then I have others that don't want any reminders. It's whatever works for them. It's no right or wrong way. I have clients that want to go to the cemetery every day, and then I have some that can't. It's not right or wrong. It's just in that moment, it's not for them. Maybe in 6 months, 8 months, it may be for them, but that's all right. When you go and sit with those heavier emotions of grief, the key is trying to figure out what supports you, what's going to sort of pull you out of that. And sometimes that can look like thinking about things in your life that you are grateful for. Sometimes it's thinking about memories of your person. It's very individual, but it can be very different. You know, it's very different for each person. I have myself a little cheat sheet because if I don't, I will talk and talk and talk. So this is kind of keeping me on track. With grief, and a lot of what we talk about today, it's not just for the holidays. You can apply it all year long. You know, grief, it doesn't follow a timeline. It's not linear. It can come in waves. It can definitely resurface around the holidays, anniversaries, or special dates. Maybe there's a Tuesday of every month. That's the day your person passed, and so that's the day that triggers you. So it's okay. It's a very individualized experience. So even for people who have maybe experienced the death of a spouse or partner or significant other, even though they might have a little bit of a clue of what that grief looks like, it still could be very different. You know, family dynamics, supports, resources, other losses, that all is going to influence that grief. Financial responsibility, people who are not supporting you in your life, that's all going to influence how that grief looks. There's no single right way to grieve. Holiday grief may hit before, during, or even after the holiday. Grief during the holiday can feel especially heavy as seasons, traditions, and celebrations can be reminders of that person. It's thinking about, and I will say sometimes the emotions and the feelings sort of leading up to the day can be a lot more challenging than the actual day. So it's sort of that logic or thinking like, what is Thanksgiving going to look like? Who's going to be there? You know, or you know, is Uncle Bob and Aunt Betty, are they going to come in, start arguing? And then tell me that I shouldn't be doing this. There's all of that part of it. So it's, leading up to it can be so much anxious. But guess what? If you're aware of that self-awareness is really important, because then you can sort of take a step back and be like, okay, I know these things could happen, but right now I'm just going to focus on the present and what I can control. So I always like, I guess it has to do with the holidays, but I always like to hit upon, especially the physical piece that grief can create, because a lot of people are not always aware of this piece. They're aware of the emotional piece. So feeling sad, maybe down, maybe at peace. Some of those cognitive challenges, maybe forgetfulness, trouble word searching, retaining information. A lot of that can be part of the normal grief process. But there is this physical component that grief can affect us. It can lower the immune system. When people are actively grieving, it can lower your immune system, which can make you more susceptible to respiratory infections, colds, or it can flare up underlying medical. So different chronic conditions, autoimmune, it can flare that up. The intense stress response that grief can trigger can affect systems in our body, which then can exacerbate chronic illness. So I always like to say, I'm not a nurse, so I should always say, Melissa, stay in your own lane because you're a social worker. However, this information is really important to know, because if there's something going on, it could be grief related. And if there's something going on, I always encourage you to have that conversation with your medical provider and say, hey, this has been going on. I don't know what it is. And let them be able to kind of figure out, should we do blood work? Should we do testing just to rule out anything? In the cardiovascular system, the surge of stress hormones like cortisol or adrenaline during intense grief can elevate heart rate, blood pressure, which then can increase risk of heart attack, stroke, especially with pre-existing conditions. There is a temporary condition called the broken heart syndrome that can happen, where the intense and emotional stress can temporarily damage the heart. Close family friend, she suffered a cardiac episode. She had the broken heart syndrome, and she had to have a heart ablation because of it. So there is that intense. I did talk a little bit about immune system, but grief can suppress immune system, making you more vulnerable to colds, flu, pneumonia. It can also increase inflammation in the body, which then can affect chronic conditions, so high blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis. So there is that physical component. If you're experiencing this, I would not be doing my due diligence by not sharing this, but make sure you see your doctor, because I am not a doctor. So now, sort of on to the holiday planning. So everyone, maybe in your circle, might have an idea of what the holidays should look like. But the challenging piece is maybe no one's communicating what the holidays look like. And so you might be thinking, I'm going to do the holidays this way, and your daughter or nephew or your chosen family might have a completely different idea. Don't wait. So one thing I always say is communication is key. Have a family meeting. Whoever needs to be I'm not saying everybody who's going to be at the holiday party or event needs to be in the meeting, but pick the main players. It's never too early to start communicating, and communicating is saying to them, this is what I need in order to have a good holiday. Or maybe it's saying, this is the first time we're navigating the holidays without this person. What can we do for our holidays? Don't be afraid to tell them, I don't want to cook. I don't want to cook for Thanksgiving. I delegate it to somebody else. Don't be afraid to communicate. It's hard. Like, it's hard when you're not grieving to do this, but then you add that other layer. You know, and the other thing, and one of the things that kind of came out of COVID, is that everybody knows how to FaceTime, Zoom, Teams. So if somebody lives down south, there's no reason why they can't be a part of this meeting now. You know, it's really important. You know, create questions, you know, to kind of discuss during the meeting. And you're going to know who's going to support you and not by the people who maybe blatantly don't respond to your invite for that meeting. It's different if somebody has to work, or if they're ill, or there's something else going on. But if somebody's not responding or just doesn't show, you're going to know right away who's going to support you and who doesn't. I'm just looking at, because I covered a lot of this. You know, I always say, don't be afraid to share what you want for your holiday. You know, think about what you need in order to have a good holiday, and what does that look like? Is it putting up a tree, or is it not? Is it not celebrating? It's okay. There's no right or wrong way. A lot of people might have thoughts and opinions, but guess what? That's their thoughts and opinions. It's your grief. You're allowed to kind of navigate what that looks like for you. Don't allow others to determine what you should or shouldn't be doing for the holidays. Give yourself permission to do what you need to support your grief. One of the things that I always talk about, and it's really hard even for me because I am a yes person, I am not a no person, but I learned early on that no is a complete sentence. And so a lot of times when we say no, we usually have to say no because you know this is why. But you don't have to. Or if you do, you can say, no, I don't really want to come to that holiday event. There's going to be too many people there. I'm just focusing on my grief. Normally, when you say that and the word grief comes up, people are like, okay, you got it. It can make others feel uncomfortable. That's on them. But it's just being able to express what you're comfortable with. One of the things is that you might not be able to do all the things you've done in the past. Some of the aspects of the holiday might be really challenging. You know, reflect on, do you want to do the same traditions, or do you not want to? I always share this story. I had a client one year. Her husband always made the Thanksgiving dinners and meals. And one Thanksgiving, when I was working with her, she was like stressing out about cooking the Thanksgiving dinner. She and her kids really didn't like the turkey and all the fixings, but they would do it for her husband. He was the one that made everything. And I asked her, I said, okay, he's not here this year, so he's not making the dinner. What do you need to have a good holiday? What would that look like with your kids? She goes, well, I just want to stay home and have Chinese food. I go, so do it. If that's what's going to support you this holiday, there are no laws saying that you have to have turkey and ham on Thanksgiving or even on the actual day. So it's okay if you need to kind of shift things. Next year, it might be a different story. You might be okay, you know, doing things the same. Consider scaling back. You know, one of the things that a lot of people that I've worked with will say to me, oh my gosh, everybody keeps inviting me to all these holiday parties, and I've gotten all these invites, because that's what usually happens. People will say, oh, Jill, you're grieving, you're missing your mom. I know what will make you feel better. I'm going to invite you to my Christmas party, or I'm going to invite you to my New Year's party. but it's okay if you don't want to go to that. But if you do want to go to one of them, kind of pick and choose. You know, sometimes if you go to all 5, that's emotionally draining. And so it may take you a couple days to kind of get your energy back. So kind of pick and choose. If you're worried about the party itself, it's okay to call whoever's hosting the party and say, who's going to be there? If it's more couple focused and that's not something people are ready to do because they don't have their person, it's okay to decline maybe that invite. Or even to say to the person, I'm not up to doing your holiday party right now, but I would love to get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or breakfast with you at a different time, just you and I. I worked with a client one time, and she said to me, I don't want to go to any parties, but I don't want them to stop asking me. And I said, so tell them. Let them know. Communicate that. Say, right now, I don't want to really go to any parties, but please don't stop asking because I might change my mind. So a lot of times, and this is going to seem really backwards, because the people in our life should just show up and know how to support us. But sometimes as the person who's actively grieving, it's okay to let them know, this is what I'm comfortable with, this is what I'm not. Sometimes it's just giving them permission to say, I'm allowed to be sad. I don't need you to fix my grief because you can't, but I really like that you're just listening. Sometimes it's just that, just giving them that permission, if you're comfortable with it. Some of the questions you could think about, I kind of talked about it, should we cook dinner or should we go out? One year I had a client make all of her husband's favorite foods for their Thanksgiving dinner, and then for the holidays, they all decided to go out to eat instead at his favorite restaurant. It's in that moment, it's whatever is comforting to you. Last year I had a client set a table for her person at the dinner table. That might not work for everybody, and some of her families had very different thoughts about that, but in that moment, she felt supported seeing her person's picture at the table. Everybody's different in how they want to grieve and cope. Do you want to put up a tree? Do you not? Do you want to mail out cards, Christmas cards? Do you not? How you sign the Christmas card? How you don't? You don't have to send out Christmas cards. If you want to sign it, you and your husband or your wife's name, you can. There's no rules. It's whatever's within your comfort level. When it comes to the certain expectations related to the holidays and grief, I just always say, give yourself permission to let go of the certain expectations and the pressures of the holiday. Sometimes when we think so far into the future related to grief, that can be very anxiety-inducing. Sometimes just being in that moment, thinking about just that moment, is a little bit more supportive. Flexibility with plans. It's okay if you change your mind. It might sound really good to go to the holiday workshop in 2 weeks, and then the workshop comes up and you're like, yep, nope, can't go. That's all right. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed, if somebody's having a party, you can tell them, say, right now, I'm in a good place. I think I can handle it, but I'm going to be honest, the day of, I may change my mind. That's part of the grief, because that grief comes in waves. So maybe that morning you woke up and you heard your person's favorite song, and that's all it took. So it's all right to change your mind. If you decide you want to go to a holiday party, you have the right to leave early. If you get there and you see somebody that you're like, oh, I didn't know they were going to be here, it's okay to leave and be like, yep, okay, I'm out of here. I don't want to be here. I did talk a little bit about it's okay to ask the host for details about certain events. One of the things that I really like is creating like a code word or a safe word, and you can pick your person that maybe you go with somebody to an event, and you can tell them, I always use the example of our kids' grief group, and their code word was chicken. If you want to use that code word, you can. A lot of times people will use outside or the restroom, but that code word is a way to indicate to that person you're at your capacity, you're done, you don't want to be here anymore, without having to go into those details. And they don't have to share it with anybody else. Maybe the host, they want to tell the host, if we say this word, it means we're done. But then you don't have to sit there and explain it to everybody. One of the things I always share is try not to compare this holiday with past holidays, but also what can naturally happen, especially when somebody within your group or your family or your chosen family who have also lost somebody. It can be really easy to kind of compare your grief to theirs, or how, oh, they just lost their person, and look at their holidays. They're doing all of this. Well, good for them. If that's what brings them support, great. But it's okay that your holiday looks different. Everybody's grief is important. It's just a different journey. It just looks different, and that's okay. Is there anything I forgot? I'm trying to think before I hand over the mic to lovely Beth. I think that's good. Okay, thank you. I'm going to get my water.
I'm a little short, hang on. Okay, so it seems like one of the biggest things with the holidays is knowing that you have that right to set boundaries and set limits. And for a lot of, Melissa said she's a yes person, I am too. So that is a hard thing for some of us to do, especially when there's expectations of us. But just keep repeating to yourself that it's okay to have those boundaries. Whether it's an event, people, places, if it feels too painful, take that step back whenever you need to. You have that right. Things to think about when you're setting those boundaries is thinking about what you're willing and not willing to do. Thinking about those things ahead of time will help us be able to set those boundaries. I can do smaller groups, but I don't want to do bigger groups. This year is going to be about a small family gathering. Think about all of those things as you go forward making those plans. Or even, hey, I want to be alone on this day, but that next day, let's do this. And it's okay to let the people know I'm setting these boundaries for my own emotional and physical well-being, or I'm taking this holiday season to focus on my own needs and my own grief. Most people will be understanding and supportive of that. Oftentimes, pressure to do things comes from family traditions, well-intentioned friends and family. Nobody likes to see somebody sad. Nobody likes to see somebody grieving. So they want to be supportive, but sometimes their way of being supportive is not what you need. And that's okay to take that step back and tell them, this isn't what I need right now. But like she already said, keep calling. This way you have that option. A lot of times around the holidays we feel obligated to do things. And just, like I said, keep reminding yourself it's okay to set those limits, set those boundaries. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about protecting our emotional space. In your folders, there's actually a Griever's Bill of Rights, Holiday Bill of Rights. I encourage you to put that out somewhere where you can see it, where you can read it. A lot of people put it on their refrigerator. It's a place you go to frequently. I've had people put them in bathrooms because that's another place where you kind of sit and can reflect for a few minutes. Also good for other people to see also. On that list, there's things on there like, I'm allowed to grieve in my own way. Joy and sorrow can exist at the same time. And that's going to happen a lot through your holidays. You know, you want to be that joyful holiday, it's a happy time, but you're still going to have that grief and that sorrow in there. We have to find the way to incorporate it into our holiday celebrations. My loved one lives on in my memory and in my heart because that is always going to be there. And on there, I'm doing the best I can, and that's enough. And that's a big one. Just always know that you are doing what you feel is good for you, and it is enough. There's a lot of things through the holidays that can trigger or activate our grief. So knowing those things that may do that are important. For a lot of people, it could be music. It could be a scent. It could be a certain tradition. It could be a certain food that your person really enjoyed. A place or an event that they really enjoyed going. Could all be could trigger or activate your grief. And just being aware of that, we're able to more prepare ourselves to face that. Because knowing you might be going into a situation, you talk to yourself differently. You can tell yourself, okay, you know, this is what I'm going to expect. Sometimes if you do go ahead and do that, sometimes the anticipation of doing that or seeing that or hearing that is worse than the actual event. Because a lot of times when you get there, you have the support that you need. And it's, again, okay to ask for the support you need. And it's okay to step away. Give yourself the grace, as this is your first, second, third, 10th year you're trying to navigate the holidays without your loved one or your person. Give yourself the grace to feel that, to experience it, and work through it. I'm going to hand this over to Mitch for a few minutes.
Adjust this. There we go. Thank you, Beth. So, continuing off of what Beth was discussing, it was about being around supports, right? Whenever a trigger of any sort happens, you want to be around people who will support you through these holidays. Choose energy givers over energy drainers. I think a lot of people are aware of the term of a social battery, right? That is really more important whenever you combine grief with the holidays. It's going to become a lot more important as you keep going through all this. This is not the time to meet the emotional needs of others if it depletes your energy or adds stress. During these times, you need to look after yourself as well as you are going through the holidays, as you navigate through all this. So, as a result, you want to surround yourself with people who will allow you to grieve authentically. So even if a trigger approaches you or anything that really activates your grief, you'll want to be around the people who will be there for you. Do you want to be around people who will also respect your coping style and will fill your emotional tank rather than empty it? It's going to be exhausting enough as it is as we go through the holidays and we acknowledge things are going to be very different from how they were before. So, with that being said, it's okay to decline invitations out of obligation. And it's also okay to say yes to quieter, smaller, or more supportive gatherings. It's also okay to spend time with people who bring comfort and peace, even if it means changing those traditions. You want to prioritize a lot of that as you go through all this. In other words, give yourself permission to choose company that heals, not drains. So continuing from that, it's also important to realize that we want to prioritize self-care. Self-care is something that we've really always really stressed around here. It's going to be important for you, not even just from before, but especially with the holidays. Treat yourself to something that will really help you through all this. Self-care is going to be very important as you balance it between that, socializing, and all the other stressors that can come with the holidays. So that means prioritizing rest, making sure you have some quiet time, nourishing meals, hydration even, physical movement, and creative outlets. Sometimes whenever we discuss self-care, even when you notice, especially when your grief is activated, you'll want to prioritize something that could even be as simple as like taking a shower, maybe going for a walk, making sure that you drink some water or something of that sort. It's very surprising when you are grieving and when you are going through the holidays, it's easy to forget a lot of those things. So, this also involves grounding practices for tough moments. There's a lot of coping tools that can be utilized around this time as well. One of which is actually breathing exercises, which is when you count 4 for inhaling. So a breathing exercise, you guys all are aware of a lot of those, but there's specific ones where if you count 4 seconds and you inhale and you hold it for 4 and then exhale for 4 seconds, there's a little bit of momentum with that and a little bit of a rhythm. That can be one way to really help whenever your grief is activated. Sensory grounding. Name 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, something of that sort. And you just keep going through it all as you keep going down that list. So it's, in other words, using the 5 senses and thinking about things that can keep your mind off of things if it gets really intense. Another method, carrying a comfort object. Small photo, token, some item of meaning. Something that is really integral to you. Something that maybe a loved one had, that's something that you hold on to. Anything of that sort can also be really good to just hold on to and make sure that, it can help you bring back to the moment. In other words, it's kind of like a grief emergency kit. A small box with soothing items, affirmations, and reminders of support. Sometimes that could be a memory box or anything of that sort, but it's not a bad idea to keep something like that with you. So, there's a couple other ideas that we have for self-care and coping, though. There is another one, which is called a reflection journal, prompts or optional, anything of that sort. Now, journaling is very important. It can really help you kind of collect your thoughts and think about where you're at in the moment. It's a good place to come back to whenever you notice something similar come up, and you can go there and see where you last left off. So offering a time to space or reflect, either in a session or anything of that stuff as a takeaway. What am I grieving most this season? You can ask a lot of these questions as you're journaling. What do I want to let go of this year? What can I do to honor my loved one during the holidays? What brings me even a small sense of peace or comfort? And who can I turn to for support when I'm feeling overwhelmed? A lot of these are questions that you can keep in your journal, and when you are noticing your grief activated, you can open it up to where you were, and you can answer a lot of those questions in that moment. Not only that, but also you'll probably see from previous times, the questions have already been answered because you've written them down. So you can go back, see what worked out last time, and then continue on from there. And even then, if one of those methods from before isn't working in that moment, then you have that list and you go to the next one. So that is also something that is actually in the folders. It has a lot of the questions on there, so it can help you get your start on that. Something else I wanted to go over was honoring and remembering your loved ones. So, the holidays are definitely going to be a time when we're going to be thinking about our people. It's inevitable. We're thinking about them all the time, and it's going to be something that's going to be made more apparent as we get closer and closer. So, honoring and remembering loved ones it means keeping their memories alive. I'm not sure if people are aware of this term, but oftentimes people say that there are 2 times when an individual that we love dies. When they pass away physically and when the memory of them is gone. Keeping that memory alive is going to be very important as we go through the holidays. That includes your loved one in the holiday traditions. It helps to ensure that they remain a part of your life story. They're always going to be a part of you, and the memories that you shared with them, that's what's going to stay with you. And in other words, by telling other people who this person was to you, what memories you shared, everything that you know about them and love and cherish about them, their story, their memory stays alive through you. Other people haven't met these people. You have the honor of knowing who this person was. Sharing their story keeps them alive every day. It also is important to provide comfort and healing. Grief can especially be heavy during the holidays. That once brought joy. Creating rituals to honor your loved one transforms the pain into almost like a purpose. It also allows a space for both sorrow and love. It gives structure to emotions and can otherwise feel overwhelming. Sorry, there's a fly here. Strengthens family and community bonds. So this, in other words, means sharing stories, photos, or even traditions that maybe your loved one had. So anything that you can remember, even during the holidays, remember how we've said that some traditions are going to change, right? Well, it also could be interesting to keep track of, okay, what traditions did we have back then? What did this person really like to do? Even if not for the holidays, then what did they do for other days? Like what we do for weekends, or what would we usually do like when a certain anniversary or anything of that sort came up? Even keeping track of those memories can really help. And you can also bring it at a family and friends gatherings or anything like that. And it can almost kind of bring people closer together as you reflect on what you did with your people. Remembering that together foster connections and understanding and sharing healing. It's about reminding everyone that grief is not something that's carried alone. Everyone around you is going through grief in their own way. That means your family members too. They have other memories and other things about them that maybe you didn't think about even. So it's always important to keep those connections, the people who will support you, the people who will be there for you, to kind of connect and share some stories that maybe were left out. So that's always something, a good way to kind of honor and remember them. That will be important when we go into the holidays. A couple other methods. Honoring the relationship, not just the loss. Now, of course, when we lose our people, that does tend to kind of overtake a lot of the good memories that we do have of that person. It's hard, of course, to, well, look further than just the loss. But it's always important to look at those memories too, because loss isn't just about, them being gone physically. It's about who they were to you. Commemorating your loved one focuses on the love and laughter, meaning that what they brought to you in life. One of my favorite sayings, it's actually from an individual, Charlie Chaplin. He always said in a quote, "A day without laughter is a day wasted." Even thinking about the times, even those silly quotes that maybe they had, or some of those even out-of-pocket sayings that they would have that you just were like, what did that person say? And you would just go back to it, and you just laugh about it. And then, on top of all this, create new traditions that blend both the past and the present. Whenever you make a new traditions, it's not just about, changing things, to help in anything. It's also about honoring their memory, even by creating something new that they taught you and making it into something of your own. It's something that you did and something that extended from what your person did. It's a combination of the two. Holidays don't have to feel like they belong to the past, But by finding ways to honor your loved one, it's a way to kind of weave their memory into new beginnings. Grief doesn't end after a certain time. We know this. It's something that is going to stay with you forever. And that person was a part of you. The love that you shared with that person is going to be there forever. It changes, though. Holiday rituals allow you to revisit and process your feelings each and every year, acknowledging how your grief and how your healing, it evolves over time. So, honoring your loved one during the holidays, there's several ways you can do this. Lighting a candle in their memory each evening or during a special meal. That candle can actually have a special meaning, so that's one method. Set a place at the table or include a favorite photo of them nearby, framing a photo of anything of that sort. Make or hang an ornament in their honor, which we'll get to later on. Sharing stories, we mentioned this earlier, sharing stories with family and friends whenever you're at social gatherings or even at a party, whatever it might be. I've actually heard multiple stories where people will actually take like memory boxes or time out of social gatherings like on Christmas Eve or anything of that sort, where they'll just gather around like the family living room and they'll just talk about their person. They'll bring up memories that they had and share them with each other. And sometimes it's even something that's shared to like, you know, your children, your grandparents, anything of that sort, so it keeps them alive even in that moment. Cooking their favorite dish or baking their favorite dessert, that's another method that we've seen. Writing them a letter, expressing your thoughts, updates, or what you miss most. Creating a memory box, giving their name, carrying a piece of them forward, wearing something that reminds you of them, or keeping a small token of them with you. Many of us keep something from that person with us. I'll even say, this watch was my father's, and it was given to me years ago, and I wear it every day. Starting a new tradition honors both their memory and your healing. That's another thing about it. Traditions that you create have a dual purpose in that sense. Now, in our folders, you will find a print material that lists 64 coping skills. This represents the holiday season, so there's plenty of other methods that we haven't discussed that you'll even find in those folders, so that can help you even further. Yeah, well, we'll be here a while if we do that. Yep. Basically, just pick and choose which ones sound the best to you and go from there. But that is it on my end. I'm going to hand it back over to Beth.
Okay, so we get through Thanksgiving, we get through Christmas, and then our next challenge is always the new year. As the calendars turn and we welcome a new year, many who are grieving feel a deep mix of emotions, while others are setting resolutions and celebrating fresh beginnings. Those mourning a loss may feel stuck between holding on and letting go. The new year can bring a sense of pressure to move on or start fresh, even when our heart isn't ready. An ache of absence when traditions and milestones arrive without your person here. Moments of guilt for laughing and planning and feeling that joy for the season. Hope and healing too, in small ways through remembering, honoring, and allowing love to live alongside your loss. So we'll talk about some ways to cope during the new year. Reflect gently, not forcefully. Instead of resolutions, try setting intentions, such as I will be kind to myself. A lot of what we've talked about is being kind to yourself, self-care, boundaries. That's all. Set that intention for yourself as you start that new year. honor your person, light a candle at midnight, share a story, or carry forward one of their values. Everybody we meet along the way gives us a piece of themselves. Those positives in the person that we lost, that's what we want to be able to carry forward. So think about what was important to you from that person and carry that forward. Seek connection, spending time with supportive people or groups who understand your grief, as you're all here. Allow both grief and gratitude. It's okay to miss and to hope at the same time. And that's what grief's about, is learning to live around that grief, because that's always going to be a part of you. Grief doesn't follow a calendar, so it does not know that it's the new year. Healing takes time, and it's perfectly okay to begin the new year with both tears and tenderness. In your folders, there's also another article. It's 7 strategies for the new year. I'm going to read parts of this only because I feel it's important, and we feel it's important. The old saying is true. If there's an elephant in the room, introduce him. No good purpose is served by denial, yet we are good at it. And when it comes to facing the pain of our grief with both eyes open, we often turn away instead. But when we have a psychological elephant in the room of our minds, we should acknowledge him and plan a way to shrink him down to a manageable size and get him on his way. If we've had a loss recently, or even not so recently, the new year provides a good opportunity for us to be honest about the pain of our grief and resolve in the months to come to be proactive and do necessary grief work to begin addressing the elephant in the room. This has 7 strategies. I'm just going to share a couple of them, but it is in your folder. So the first one I want to review is, their recommendation is write yourself a comforting and encouraging letter. Imagine you had a friend who you care deeply for, and imagine that friend had just experienced the death of somebody they love very much. You would want to be there to help them, to support them, to comfort them. Now substitute yourself for that friend. Write that letter to yourself, what you would want for yourself and to give somebody else. And it doesn't have to be a whole drawn-out letter. Think about things you would say. Leave yourself little notes. Leave these where you can find them. This one says, have a great day. You're doing great. Take a moment. All things you should be telling yourself through your days, through the holiday seasons, going into the new year. Second is planning ahead. We all have calendars, whether they're on our phones, whether they're a little calendar hanging on the wall. Think about getting a large calendar, like a desk calendar, so you have lots of space to write. In that space, you can write your appointments, doctor's appointments, things you have to do, shopping lists. Those are all your tasks. Make sure when you're filling out that calendar, schedule that time for yourself. Whether it's half hour of reading, watching a movie, a moment of reflection, whatever you choose. This way, if something comes up that says, hey, I'm inviting you out for dinner tonight, you can look at your calendar and honestly say, oh no, I scheduled myself to watch a movie that night. It's important. It really is important to do. You can even on that calendar write down what your feelings were for that day. You know, if journaling and writing in a journal, it doesn't have to be a whole drawn out thing. It can just simply in that space on that calendar, write, I was sad today when I saw a cardinal. Right? I was happy today when I heard my dad's favorite song. It's important. So this next one says, move your body, move your mind. And I love this because my friend told me this. It does not say exercise. And I actually love that because so many people are intimidated by that word exercise, you know, going to a gym, working out, what am I going to wear? I don't want other people watching me. You get all of that. And it's just that movement. It's getting up, doing a lap around the house. I do it at the office all the time, you know, to refocus myself. I'll get up and take a walk outside or even around the office if, like yesterday, it was cold and rainy and I did not want to go outside. There's ways to do that. Dance party for one. I was at a job where we would do 10-second dance parties, you know, and just that 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, we would put that music on, move it all out, and then relax. It helps you to refocus and kind of take away some of that heaviness when you're feeling it. There's other strategies in here, absolutely. One of them is music, and that's one of my big ones, is I love listening to music, and that helps recalm and direct me. But you guys can read through that on your own. What is next? The 5 candles. Okay. So I think now we're going to have our volunteers come up and do our coping technique of the 5 candles.
The first candle we light represents our grief. The pain of losing you is as intense as our love was for you.
Second candle that we lift today represents the courage it takes for us to confront our sorrow, the courage it takes to comfort each other, and the courage it takes to change our lives.
The third candle we light is your memory. The times we laughed, the times we cried, the times we were angry towards each other, the silly things we did, and the caring and the joy you gave us.
The fourth candle we light for our love. As we enter the holiday season and share this day of remembrance, we light this candle that your light may always shine.
The fifth candle we light for hope, that you will live on through us, never be erased from our memory, that your life continues to make a difference in the world, that you are proud of us, and that we will be together again. We love you. We remember you.
Now we're just going to take a little moment of silence and reflection, and during this time, Pastor Wayne is going to play some nice music for us.
know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them in my life. I love you more. Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. Oh, in my life, I love you more. In my life, I love you more. I heard. It's those moments, right? It's those songs that bring those memories flooding back. What a beautiful song. And a great way to remember our loved one.
So I often always ask myself why we do the questions and discussion now after we do the reflection, because it's very moving. But now is the time where if anybody would like to share anything, if anybody has any questions, comments, thoughts, and you also don't have to if you don't want to. We'll be across in the cafe for refreshments. So at that time, if you prefer to approach us individually, we're all here for that support. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you all for coming. My name's Dave, and I'm sorry for your loss. And I'd like to thank all the volunteers. My wife passed September 7th of last year. She's the one that introduced me to the holidays. I never had them growing up. And her birthday was 12 days after she passed. And I did something for her in memory of her. And she enjoyed all the holidays. Her mom passed away on Christmas Eve when all my kids were little. And they all really got into the holidays, which is what the wife introduced me to. So I carry it on, even to today. Everybody's story is different. I carry it on because before she passed at home, where I was her caregiver from 2019 until she passed last year, 9 months in hospice, she made me promise that I would be okay and that I would carry on her tradition. And I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else brave enough to share or ask a question?
Hi, I'm Jean. My husband passed away last year in October. My question is my tears. I still have them, and sometimes they occur when I'm talking to a friend. And it's, sharing a memory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm like a Hallmark person. I cry when I see the commercials, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get teary. Immediately, that person says, I'm sorry. And they stop talking.
Yeah.
How can I encourage them to continue talking through my tears? I mean, I would say that, but they don't believe me. I would like a way to encourage the conversation because I like it.
Before I respond, would any of the bereaved that are here, including bereaved volunteers, do any of you have any thoughts on this?
I think you just keep talking, regardless how they feel
Yep.
about what you have said. I think you just keep right on going.
Yeah.
Yes.
My friend Janet back there told me, because, as a bereavement counselor, I am not immune to crying. It's very rare that I show that sometimes in my sessions because it's not about me, it's about them. But I did have one time when it just seeped out. Janet, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but she told me those are tears of passion. Those are tears of not sorrow or sadness, but those are tears of love and passion. Not that you might not feel comfortable sharing that with a person, but you can say, I cry. I cry when I'm sad, I'm crying when I'm happy, I cry at Hallmark movies. And a lot of times it's not you, it's them who feel uncomfortable. But it also kind of normalizes to them, if they ever go through this, that it's okay that they cry.
I'll add to that.
Okay, thank you. Because I probably butchered it.
Long before I leave bereavement calls, I would go to grief groups to learn. And one thing that often happens is when someone starts to get emotional, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I can't believe I did that. And that just didn't sit with me well. And the idea that I'm having a bad day. So our society has created these
Lowe's. A couple of you have heard this story several times, but I love it. I was in Lowe's, and they had all the lawn ornaments, and up on that top shelf, they had a peacock that was all lit. It had blue glitter and blue and green lights, and it was just beautiful. I said, that's it. So I got that peacock and put it in my house on a stand, and that is my Christmas. And I love this peacock, and I've done it every year. So I look forward to putting this peacock up. And my husband had a great sense of humor, very, very funny. So when I'm still vacuuming up blue glitter in June, I know he's laughing and laughing and laughing.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
I just want to jump onto something that Melissa had said earlier about communicating your needs. After my husband died, we had many years ago bought my grandparents' house, and they had Christmas Eve. And so I inherited Christmas Eve, and I loved everything about it. After my husband died, same thing. I was very happy to have all my family there. We lit candles for him and my dad. And then 2 years later, my sister's significant other passed away, and we were just, chatting. And I said, "Okay, we'll have Christmas Eve." And she said, dead quiet, I can't do it. And I said, "What?" And she said, "I can't do it. I cannot do the same things that we have always done." She said, "It might bring you comfort, but she said, it's making me feel like I want to crawl out of my skin." And I thought, oh. It just certainly goes back to the everybody feels differently. So I said, okay, well, what can we do? And so last year, and we have a small family, there's only about 10 of us. So last year, we rented a place, and we all went away, and it was brand new setting, brand new traditions, brand new whatever, and it was wonderful. But if my sister hadn't said that to me, we would have been at my house doing the exact same thing, and she would have been in a terrible state. So it is really important to put out there what you can tolerate and what you can't, and make a new plan if that's going to be what works for you.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
If those traditions find comfort for you but not somebody else, that communication can find ways to adapt. Like if you're going away, like in that example, you're going away, what can you bring? What of that old tradition can you bring with you to be a part of that, to form a new tradition?
Hello, my name is Debbie, and this is my church, which is, I found a lot of comfort in this church. My husband passed away January 24th this year. He always loved Christmas. He loved Santas, and I have like 10 bins in storage of all Santas, every kind you can think of, battery operated, fiber optic, everything. This is going to be the first Christmas without it. Well, his birthday's December 10th, so I've already got that to deal with. But I am putting up, I finally got an artificial tree. Over the years, my husband and I both said, I will never get an artificial tree. But after dealing with, as you get older, getting on your hands and knees, screwing that darn thing into the stand, and the needles and everything you have to deal with, it's like, I finally talked him into letting me get an artificial tree last year. So I will be putting the tree up again this year, and trying to get through Christmas without him is going to be a challenge, but how to do it. So, yeah, that's all. And thank you everyone for coming here, and thank you for Hospice for being here. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any thoughts? If not, I want to thank everybody for coming. It takes a lot of courage and strength to reach out to RSVP, but then also to show up. So I always thank everybody for coming to these types of events, or even our groups or individual counseling. Across the way, we have refreshments. I know we're over our time, but we started a little bit late, but I don't know if there's other church things planned. But we do have the opportunity to make a remembrance ornament next door. We have cookies and treats and water and coffee and just an opportunity to kind of meet others and just, if you would like to stay, you don't have to.
There's papers over there that explain what the ornament, what you're putting together, because it represents the emotions, the feelings that you're having about all of this.
And we'll be over there to help with that too.